except they are not, because they cannot destroy the human soul. This is what I was talking about earlier today. We do love one another. We do feel empathy for all the children in Gaza and for their parents, and it's unimaginable to us that our leaders are encouraging this. And in Ukraine, the slaughter of young and middle-aged Ukrainian men and Russian men in the Ukraine, which obviously is an absurd war to be allowing it to go on, but it suits them, it suits their agenda, they like it, it's good for them, but it's bad for every other human being in the world, sadly.
Why did your mates in Pink Floyd do a song for Ukraine, but they didn't do one for Gaza?
Well, that's Gilmore. Well, I think Nicky, my friend Nicky, and he is my friend,
Okay.
I think he was involved in it, but that's just because he's thoughtless.
But would they do one for Gaza as well, or not?
I haven't the faintest idea. I shouldn't think so. I mean, it was his wife who got, I think it was 13 million tweets responses or 20 million saying that I was a raging anti-Semite and that I had to be stopped. Polly Sampson.
Right.
So, but obviously what Dave did, making that daft record with a Ukrainian and it's a very nationalistic song and whatever, and I don't know anything about the guy, was very misguided. Anything that was waving a flag and promoting the war in Ukraine was the worst thing anybody could do for the people of Ukraine. They'd almost got it sorted. Even after the Maidan coup in 2014, where they removed the democratically elected government of Ukraine in an illegal coup financed by Washington. And everybody knows it because of the Victoria Nuland phone call to the ambassador and blah, blah, blah. So even after that, and then they started shelling the people in Donbass in 2014, it was another 8 years before Putin and the people of Russia had had enough and went, no, we're going to have to come in and sort you lot out. And they did, with their, quote, special military operation. But Zelensky wanted to put a stop to it. To his credit, mind you, he had stood absolutely his platform for becoming president in the election where he was elected president was, I'm going to make peace with Donbass. I'm going to end the civil war. I'm going to effect the Minsk Accords, which have been sorted out. He'd done all that, and the West put an end to it. The Americans put an end to it, aided and abetted by Boris Johnson.
But it's interesting listening to you because...
And they murdered all those kids. Sorry, I'm
No,
sorry.
but I just wonder where you get your strength from, because what you're talking, you're like, when you talk about Gaza or Julian Assange, these are red lines, not just for cultural figures, for anyone who's in any kind of institution which has control over the discourse, and you get hammered, and that's why people don't touch that stuff. So obviously you get a lot of hits. Where do you get your strength from? What is it that drives you to speak out?
Well, I'll tell you what it is. It's my mum. I've said this often before. But the thing is, I'm not in an institution of any kind.
Yeah.
I'm not a one-man band. I work with, when I'm on the road, there's like 170 of us on the road together, and we're a family. We're a circus family. We love one another, and the feeling is great. And I love working with other people, but it's my thing. All right. Yes. So, but the thing is that I have no choice in the matter. Because my mum, when I was 13 years old, famously one day, she said, you're going to have to think things out about things as you get older, Roger, and there'll be a lot of things in your life. And those are Julian Assange, whatever, Ukraine, whatever, those are three things like this. And when you are concerned about anything, you're going to have to think about, you have to read. You have to read everything you can find about whatever the situation is. Doesn't matter what it is. Yeah, and then read some more. And don't just read the opinions of people who agree with you. Read everything and read the contra opinions or whatever. When you've done that, You've done all the heavy work, all the heavy lifting. It's over. The rest is easy. Oh, what do I do then, Mum? She said, you do the right thing. So, and I love her for that. I think, what a great lesson for a parent to give a child, because it presupposes, A, that there is a right thing to do, therefore you have to believe in ethics and philosophy and a moral compass and figuring out what the right thing to do might be. And so I'm stuck, and will be for the whatever time I've got left with that. I have to do the right thing, whatever the consequences are. It doesn't matter. And so do millions of billions of us all over the world. We have to do that. We have to do the right thing. And bugger the consequences. I'm lucky that I've somehow managed to finagle myself into a position of enough power that so far, touch wood, they have failed to destroy me, and they will. The Israeli establishment and the political establishment. I know it's stupid to say this because they could snuff me out in a heartbeat. You know, it's just one bullet in the back of the head, and they do kill people. We know they do.
Yeah,
we've seen it. You know, all those unsolved whatevers. People dead in the Clintons' fish pond. And there's a few of those, I'm told, but I don't know. I don't really want to go there.
Yeah.
But I keep coming back, Ahmed, to that. Is this changing anything? Yeah, it is. It's out in the open. It's murder in broad daylight, and it's being perpetrated by our governments. The Americans, the Brits, the French, the Germans, the Dutch, the Danish, the Swedish, the Finnish, the blah, blah. The Ukrainians, all of them, all of us, in plain sight. And we will not swallow it, none of it. You know, we round this table, but what you're asking is, and this is the question, is what do we do? What can we, in the face of them taking no notice of any truth or any love or any of this stuff, what do we do? Well, we've got Fiona and Leanne as a signpost to the future. You know, Fiona's, well, she's standing in Stratford and Bow, and Leanne's standing in North Ilford, and of course Andrew Feinstein is standing in, even more importantly, I think, in Holborn and St Pancras, yeah, where he's standing against Keir Starmer, who is one of the chief murdering swine in the world. And he's supposed to be in opposition to the murdering swine, the Tories, led by Rishi Sunak. He's supposed to be the opposition, and he's in cahoots with them. He's in exactly the same position. He connived with the Israeli lobby to destroy the career of Jeremy Corbyn, who actually did care about working people, and he cared about human rights, whereas Rishi Sunak and Keir Starmer don't give a fig for human rights. Yours, mine, the Israelis, anybody. They couldn't care less. Which is, so that's where I keep coming back to it, December the 10th, 1948.
Do you know, Roger, I think that Israel is doing something, even, you talked about they're doing murder, but I think that they're doing something worse than murder in Gaza, which is a humiliation. They have humiliated the people. They're trying to humiliate the people. And I'm telling, I've said this before to my friends that maybe I shouldn't say that, but I will say it anyway. I said that I'm happy that my family were killed on the 22nd of October. Because what happened to people now, after that, is worse than death.
Yeah.
You know, I have still, one of my sisters who survived the bombing, she has been living a nightmare for 9 months now. Now, she and her 7 children have hepatitis B.
Have what?
Yeah. Hepatitis
B, yeah.
Yeah. And they are isolated from everyone. She and her 7 children. No one talked to them, no one visited them, and they have been starving for many months. what's happening there, it's worse than murder. It's really worse. And sometimes I feel I'm relieved that the majority of my family died, and they're relieved now. They're in a better place.
Dreadful indictment that is of the rest of the world, and of we in the West who don't stand up to be counted. And all my colleagues in the music industry who don't stand up to be counted. You know, all those, and I'm not going to start naming names because there's too many. And you think, how do you sleep? Sorry to quote John Lennon, Paul. but how do they sleep? I don't get it. How do we? Brian Eno told me he ran into Gilmore in the street the other day, and he said he looked a bit sheepish. Now, that's inputting ideas. I shouldn't really have quoted Brian Eno, who I adore. But it's an interesting idea. I wonder if he does ever wake up and go, my God, maybe Roger's right and I'm wrong. I doubt it, because he's not that kind of animal. He's a bit more equal than others, to quote George Orwell.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's not go there. Look, you've set me off now.
No, but it is interesting, like that whole thing of how can a person, if they're even just the have a baseline moral code, look at what we've been looking at for 8 months and still think, oh, it's not in my interest to speak out now. Or
even still think the Israelis have a right to defend themselves, which comes before the it's not in my interest to speak out.
Yeah.
That would be to say, I know this is wrong, but I'm not going to speak out because I may suffer a consequence.
I think a lot of people are like that, though.
Well, you may well be.
I think most people know now, because as you say, it's out in the open. I think most people now, there's so few voices, just because the people in that industry, in your industry, and many others are cowards, moral cowards who would prefer to preserve the benefits they have in life than actually speak out on a great issue of the day. I don't understand it though. It's crazy to me to be it, because it's like you say, like, I feel the same as you. Like, there's no choice. When you see that, you think, well, I'm going to do everything I can to stop that now. It's natural.
Isn't it interesting though that how tout ça change, tout c'est la même chose. Back in 1938, Bertelsmann, who were the people I was going to do a record deal with, my new record, were publishers in Germany. And by this time, you know, Hitler's in the Reichstag and it's blah, 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 and it's taken over and it's a one-party system and one-state system. So they started printing anti-Jewish leaflets. And they did all of that back then, Bertelsmann's. This is the parent company of BMG. It was the record company that I was going to do a deal with. And they went, so don't tell me that in 1938 or 39 or whenever, Germans didn't know who Hitler was and what Goering was like. And Goebbels. I mean, they'd already, no, 38 was crystal loud. They'd already watched the murder of all the brown shirts because they were getting in the way a bit. So they knew what was going, but they went, let's not rock the boat. We're doing all right.
Yeah.
We're making a few quid, you know, and Hitler's building nice roads and there's the Volkswagen. And whatever it was, so what if he calls a few Jews? Who cares? You know, why? It's not my problem. That's because they couldn't go, well, hang on, how would I feel if I was a Jew? And it was being done to me. It's what I keep coming back to the same thing. Everybody has to have human rights, including Jews, or Slavs, or Gypsies, or communists, or gay people, or whatever it might be. And so we're now, tout ça change, tout c'est la même chose. We're faced with exactly the same thing now. We all know that the United States of America is a criminal empire. It's a criminal enterprise. And we know that the state of Israel is a group of vicious, malicious gangsters out to murder and humiliate a whole people in order to express their absolute feeling of supremacy about them. They've said constantly over the last years that they are superior because God told them so. and that Palestinians are animals. They're not human.
And by the way, this started way before the 7th of October.
Of course.
My father used to work in Israel in the 70s and 80s, like
Of course, yeah.
Like all the Palestinians in Gaza who were forced to work in Israel because they have crushed the economy of Gaza. And my father told me, and I keep repeating this story over and over again. My father told me that his boss, his Israeli boss, told him right in his face that God only created the Israelites as humans and the rest of the world as animals who were created only to serve the Israelites. And when they were disgusted with the shapes of these animals, they asked God to transform them into a human-like animals. They believe in that, and they have told that to my father. And of course, this doesn't represent all the Israelis or all the Jews, of course not. But there is, some of them are really view us as animals, as we are less, as we are inferior to them.
Yeah.
That is the problem. So how do you deal with people who don't see you as a human?